Hi, welcome to podcast episode number 5. Today I have one finished object to share, I have 2 works in progress and some very exciting news about the pattern I released. So grab a comfy drink and something to work on and let's chat about it. So my first finished object is a self-drafted summer top I've been working on over the last few weeks. And I've actually written a pattern for this that is available on Ravelry right now, so you can click the link in the description and get a free download. And this is what it looks like. I've called it lobster topster because, well, it has a lobster and it is a top. And the idea was to create 2 panels, a back panel that is plain and looks like this, and a front panel that has the lobster colorwork design on the side. And then they are attached at the shoulder seams, like so. And then I've knitted I-cord ties for the sides here to close it. Which is nice because it gives you a little bit of like airflow through here, so even for very hot days this is still absolutely suitable. I've knitted this in belle, which is a yarn that is mainly consistent of cotton and has some viscose and some linen, but you could also use line, which has the same fiber composition and almost the same weight. And I've used 3.5mm needles to achieve gauge, which is 16 stitches and 25 rows, I believe. I think in the last episode I was done the back panel and I was also done with the colorwork chart for the front. And I believe I had already started on the front and was like a third of the way done, so like around here. And I had decided to frog that part of the front again because I was a bit unhappy with what it looked like. Because my strands were a little too short. So when I knitted colorwork in the past, I always used a stretchier fiber like a merino, and it was fine to just like hold the float in place and continue knitting without pulling it too tight. But here, when I was doing the same thing, the fabric was like bunching up over the floats, which just didn't look very good. And I realized that because the fiber is less stretchy, I have to make the floats a little bit longer. So what I did for my second try was I pulled on the float a little bit, and then I pulled my stitches apart until the float was able to cover all of the stitches it was supposed to cover, even when the garment was stretched out. And that way the floats have become relatively loose in the back. Like, not that they're hanging down, but they're definitely looser than what I'm used to. It looks like this. But yeah, that way the fabric isn't bunching up. I blocked it and I kind of readjusted the sides of the lobster a little bit because some of the stitches there were a bit bigger because they were just looser. But it worked out really well. I don't think there's any noticeable gaps in the fabric because of it. But it's just a good thing to keep in mind when you're working with fabric that isn't stretchy for color work. For my second try, I also did stranded color work immediately. If you remember, for my first try of the front panel, I tried to do intarsia fast because right in the beginning here, where the little antenna are and the claws, there are quite some spots where the floats are relatively long, and I did have to catch my floats from time to time, which is nobody's favorite thing to do, but yeah, I thought intarsia might fix that, but then I just ended up having 7 balls of yarn attached and that wasn't fun either. So for the second try I just did stranded color work all the way through, and that worked out very well and was far less work. So after the last episode I frogged the front panel pretty much immediately, and then it was just following the color work chart I had already created. So nothing too complicated, and it was, I don't know, not that motivated in the beginning because I was working such a big section for the second time. But after I hit the point where I left off the first try, it went really fast. I think I did all of this part here in like 2 or 3 days. And then I attached both panels here at the shoulder, and I knitted these I-cord ties for the side, which I had to make 8 of because obviously there's 2 here and 2 here and then the same on the other side. So that was definitely the worst part of it all because it was such a tedious thing to do, always sliding the stitches back and forth and just almost being done but not quite there yet. But at least it was the last thing I had to do, and I got through it in like 1 day, but it took me, I don't know, 4 hours. And then I was completely finished, and I'm very happy with the outcome, as you might be able to tell. I think it's a very unique design. I have seen tops that have these 2 panels that are attached on the side with strings, but I really wanted to add some color work in the mix. I think the lobster looks really cute, and I also like that it's very suitable for summer because of the material and also because it has these gaps here. Apart from the frogging back, I would say it was a very enjoyable process knit as well, and I managed to write down a pattern for it. It wasn't necessarily my first time writing a pattern. Like, I usually write patterns when I self-draft and I'm done. I take notes during and then after. I just want like one document where all the information is written down. But I've never published a pattern, so all of the writing it for different sizes and doing the design part of it was actually really fun to do. And I put it on Ravelry as a free download, and that's where you can find it right now. It is available from sizes extra small to extra large for a bust circumference of 84 to 135 centimeters, and that is 33.5 to 53.25 inches, if I'm not mistaken. I would be very happy if you make the pattern and share your results, and if you have any thoughts or feedback or questions and problems, you can always contact me on Instagram. The first whip I'd like to chat about is the Madeleine sweater, which is a pattern by Pernille Larsen, and I am knitting a size medium after much consideration. I'm actually also participating in a knit along for this, which is pretty fun to do. And I'm knitting this in drops belle as well in moss green, because I wanted something or a more summery fiber to replace the knitting for olive no waste wool that was suggested in the pattern. I don't have a problem with the no waste wool per se. I just thought that since this garment has like holes in it and it's summer anyways, I would like to wear it when I finish it, or kind of wear it, you know, beginning of summer, end of summer, around that time, or maybe in the evenings. So I didn't really want an animal fiber for it, and I was already working with drops belle. It was working out very well, and I thought it could kind of hit gauge. It didn't really, but I sized down my needle size quite a bit, so I went from a 4.5 millimeter, I believe that was suggested in the pattern, down to a 3 millimeter needle, but I am hitting gauge now with that, so quite a bit smaller, but it's fine, it's working out. I also have this on a 60 centimeter cable, which is not ideal, but the other option would have been a 120 centimeter cable, and that was just way too long. So I'm just dealing with this. It's fine for knitting, it's just difficult to show, I don't know. So the garment is worked bottom up, and for right now I'm just following one lace chart that is a 19 stitch repeat really. It's like a little house motif, at least I'm calling it that. I don't know if it's actually supposed to be a house, but it looks like this. So that's like 19 stitches, and I have to do that house 3 times. I believe last time I had finished it 1.5 times, and now I'm done 2.5 times. So that's what it looks like. I actually worked on this quite a bit recently. I took it on a bit of a vacation, and I worked on it all throughout the drive and like while we were driving around there, but somehow I don't feel like I've made a ton of progress. I don't know, it's just taking a really long time. But I also have a vlog up about the vacation if you want to see more about that. I'm pretty excited to move on to the next section with this, because it is fun to knit on while I'm knitting on it. Like in the process of it, I'm definitely having fun with it, but I never really reach for it over any of my other whips because the progress is so slow, and because it's getting a little bit repetitive since I'm just repeating the same chart over and over and over again. So I have like half of the little house to get through, and then I guess I'll see what else the sweater brings. It's also just gonna be the little house because the little house is all over it, but at least not the exact same chart. But I would say it is a nice pattern to work on. It's a little more engaging than just doing stockinette the entire time, but it's also not really complicated at all. So if you haven't knitted lace before, I would recommend starting with something like that, since it's, as I said, it's just a 19 stitch repeat for the house, and you do that quite a lot of times to get used to it, and also it's in the round, so you don't have to read the chart back and forth, which is also nice. So I'm excited to see what the rest of this pattern brings, and I'm kind of fine with this being a bit of a slower knit. Like, I don't need to finish it immediately. It would be nice to have it for summer evenings, but also summer is still quite long, and even if I don't finish it during summer, I can easily style this in autumn as well with something underneath. So it's kind of cool. It's like very versatile, I believe. My second whip is something I have already mentioned in my plans last time, and that is the Elliot sweater by Wool and the Gang. I really wanted to make a wrap top, but I couldn't really find one pattern that I enjoyed 100%. So then I came across this sweater, and I thought I could easily adjust this to be a wrap top. And it was a free pattern also. That was what sold me on it in the end. So I decided to get it and start making the sweater, or the wrap top in my case. I'm using a yarn called camarose host, or I still don't know. I keep saying it every week and I never know how to pronounce it. Maybe I should look it up sometime. But I saw this on some kind of yarn website I was shopping on a few months ago, and I was immediately obsessed. I'm not usually the biggest fan of variegated yarns, but I think they have such pretty colors. This one as well is called tranebær, I guess. And I also really enjoy the composition. So this is 75% cotton and 16% wool and 9% cashmere. And it is a blown yarn, so the net is made out of cotton and then wool and cashmere fibers are blown into it. And I think it's, I don't know, very unique. I've never seen anything like that. But it's really cool for me because it has like the softness and the fluff that animal fibers would have, but it's not incredibly warm because it's mostly cotton. And I would say it's like, I don't know, it's not stretchy, it's like stiff like cotton is, but it's not as heavy as cotton either because it's blown yarn, I assume. So it's very cool to work with, and I think perfect for me for like transitional seasons for, I don't know, autumn or spring, when I do need something with long sleeves, but not really something that is made out of wool or alpaca or something like that that's like actually warm. So when I saw that the suggested yarn for the Elliot sweater and this yarn have pretty much the exact same weight and gauge, I was immediately sold on the combination, and I got this yarn and the pattern. I'm knitting on a 4.5mm needle. I think a 5mm needle is recommended, but I know that my gauge is always too loose, so I just sized down and hit gauge first try. And for the ribbing, I sized down to a 3mm needle. I think there's a 3.5mm needle suggested. And the last time we spoke about this, I had already made a swatch and had already adjusted the pattern to my liking because of two reasons. First of all, I did want to make a wrap top, not a sweater. So for the way the pattern is designed, the ribbing at the bottom of the front panel is attached to each other. So, well, it's a sweater, but I want to kind of make a cut in it, or have two separate front panel pieces that I can then tie together. So I thought about how to change the pattern to accomplish that. And also, I didn't really like the way the pattern was written. It's written in steps, which is not something I've seen before, and I found it really confusing to read. So everything you're supposed to do is in a step, and then sometimes a step will be, oh, now repeat the step from 7 steps before 4 times, and it's like very confusing to figure out what information even applies to you, what step you're supposed to be on, to not skip anything or do anything twice accidentally. So even when I was just reading through it to understand how this is constructed, I had such trouble figuring out what was going on. So I sat down and spent a few hours rewriting the pattern in a way that I could actually read it, like a normal knitting pattern. So I don't know, maybe some people prefer to have the steps. I definitely don't, but I don't want to complain too much. It was a free pattern after all. I actually don't know if all of the Wool and the Gang patterns are like that, or if it's just this one. But yeah, for somebody who's used to regular knitting patterns, I believe it's quite difficult to follow it. So I'm very happy I sat down and took the time and rewrote it, so now it's much shorter and much easier to follow, and I was able to already do the back panel. So the sweater is a raglan construction, and it's worked bottom up and in pieces. So you work the back panel first, and then the front panel, or in my case the 2 front panels, and then the sleeves, and then you attach them later, which is not a construction I've ever done like that before. Like, I've done raglan, but usually, you know, top down. And the top has this thick ribbing here at the bottom. I think on camera it doesn't even pick up where the ribbing ends and the rest of the body starts, but like this is the end of the ribbing. And then you just knit this section straight back and forth, and then you do some decreases for the armholes. It's folding in on itself because it's stuck in it, but yeah, this is the decreases. So I got done with the back panel some days ago, and I immediately cast it on for the front panel, or one of them. I'm losing stitches. Wait a second. Okay. I also like stopped in the middle of the row. I don't know why I did that, but yeah, this is just the ribbing, and it's just a lot of rows of going back and forth in ribbing. But I don't know, it's working up really quickly, and it's really fun to do at the moment. Because, well, first of all, you do all the pieces separately, so you have more opportunities to feel accomplished along the way. And then also this is on 4.5mm needles, while everything else I am working on, or I was working on, was on 3 or 3.5. So it just feels a lot faster. Because of that, I'm kind of more motivated to pick it up. But also the other projects, like the colorwork top or the madeleine sweater, they're relatively complicated, not incredibly complicated, but you know, there's something going on that you have to pay attention to at all times. So this is kind of nice if I just want to do something really easy, just stockinette, easy decreases, and just pick it up and get some knitting in. So even though the construction kind of threw me off at first, this is actually really fun to work on, and I would recommend this if you're willing to go through all of the steps or you don't mind reading a pattern like that. So I don't have any acquisitions to share this time, and I also didn't make any very specific plans, to be honest, which is good because a few weeks ago I was in an over-planning spirit and I kind of stressed myself out by piling things onto my to-do list that I felt like I could never finish. But I did show you my stash last week, and while going through all of my yarns I realized I have quite a few projects planned that are like smaller winter accessories, like a hat or some fingerless gloves or things like that. That I don't really want to cast off right now just because it's not the weather for it. Maybe I will if I get frustrated with my other projects, but it's more like plans for in a few months than plans for in a few weeks. I still have my mesh pullover in the back of my mind, and I think I might look back into that once I finish either one of my whips. I don't really like to have more than 2 whips at a time. I had 3 right now, which was already stressing me out a little bit, but I'm more of a monogamous knitter. I want one main project and one other one that I can grab if I get frustrated with the first one. But yeah, since both of my projects were kind of complicated, I cast on the Elliot sweater last week, and well, now I had 3, but I finished 1 and I'm back to 2 and I want to keep it that way. But once I finish either one of those, I will get the mesh pullover back out and see what I can do about that. I'm also thinking about knitting another summer top just because I have quite a bit of yarn left over from the lobster top. I was a bit generous with the amount of yarn that I got because when you're self-drafting you don't really know how much yarn exactly you will take. So I think I have almost 50 grams of the red and almost 100 grams of the white left, and I could technically do something with that. I'm not quite sure what, so there might be a video of me going through some summer top options. And since I was having so much fun writing up the pattern for my lobster top, I thought maybe I would go back and write a pattern for my seabreeze sweater. I did write down a pattern for myself, but not in different sizes and also not with any design elements, so not really for publishing, but I think that might be a fun thing to do. I don't know if it makes sense right now, it's not really the season for it. But if anybody does want to have that, I guess I could write it down and put it online, and yeah, whoever wants to make that in the middle of summer still can. So that was all for today. Thank you for watching until the end. Give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. You can let me know in the comments if you have any suggestions for summer tops that you enjoyed making, and definitely make my summer top. Let me know how that goes, and I will see you next time.